Hello, everyone, listeners of Thrive Together, Together's first ever podcast. I'm Meagan Darrow, the host and the executive director of Together. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm really excited for today's episode. We're going to be exploring a new initiative in Thurston County called Anchor Community Initiative. And we have guests here, but my co-host is Sierra, and I'm going to hand it off to Sierra. Y'all have seen her a couple times in our other episodes, but Sierra, will you take a minute to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Sierra Abrams. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the community schools director for our program in Tumwater. And I'm also really excited for our guests today to talk about the Anchor Community Initiative and the ways we've been working together, no pun intended, on this project.
No, always pun intended. That's what I say, okay? Anytime we can drop that.
Yeah.
Pun intended. All caps.
Together. Exclamation point. Together. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Sierra, for those listeners who haven't been listening before, can you tell us a little bit about Tumwater Community Schools and what it does for and with families?
Yeah, absolutely. So, community schools is a model that we practice in Tumwater. And so the model is that schools are a hub of resources and connection for families and students. And so we have resource centers in schools in Tumwater, high schools, middle and elementary schools, all those different levels. And we provide basic needs access as well as case management, including housing case management and rental assistance, food support, navigation through social services. And really the goal of this program is to change the way that our community shows up for each other, using the schools as an access point. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Love it. My favorite model around. So we have special guests here. Sierra, can you introduce our guests or have them introduce themselves?
Yeah. So I'll pass it off to our two guests, Meagan and Lex, and I'll just let you guys introduce yourselves. Yeah.
Okay, I'm Meagan Toney, and I am the Anchor Community Initiative Coordinator in Thurston County. And so my role is, and I go by she, her pronouns. My role is to work with different agencies and providers within Thurston County to work to end youth and young adult homelessness.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And my name is Lex. I use they, them pronouns, and my role is the Youth and Community Engagement Coordinator for the ACI program. And so I work with agencies and specifically people who do direct service with youth to connect with youth and engage youth to get them on our advisory board.
Amazing. Brand new.
Yes.
Brand new stuff for Thurston County. So I'm going to ask the first question, since we've already dropped Anchor Community Initiative a couple times and ACI. Meagan and Lex, what is Anchor Community Initiative?
Yeah, so I can touch a little bit on the Anchor Community Initiative. So we have 10 different counties in the Anchor community right now, and all of us are working to prove that it is possible to end youth and young adult homelessness. And we believe that we can't do any of this work without having the voices of young people come to the table, who are because they're the ones that are being directly impacted by our system. Mm-hmm. So right now in Thurston County, like Lex was saying, like we're working to create a youth advisory board. And this is to help us get their leadership, their direction, their voices to the table so we can bring that back to the community and bring it into our system so we can get that like sustainable space for youth to thrive in. So do you want to like touch a little bit on like the engagement of youth that we're seeing so far?
Yeah. So the youth engagement is pretty much like essential to this work because the youth and young adults who have lived experience with these systems and with homelessness are truly like the experts on also what is missing and what is failing them in these systems. And what that looks like within this work is there's two different meetings. One meeting that engages a lot of agencies to come together to talk about these systems. And that also features youth and young adult voices, but there's a separate recurring meetings and or like one-on-one meetings called the Youth Advisory Board, which is consisted of all members who have lived experience, youth and young adults, to come together and talk together and share their different experiences, because one person representing a whole group is not fully encompassing of all the needs. So, yeah, a diverse group of people coming together to talk about their needs. And,
yeah, awesome. So I want to touch on a little bit, because, you know, when ACI, or Anchor Community Initiative, not to use our abbreviation, it was started by a collaborative, right, of organizations in Thurston County. We decided to put our community in with other partners, community services, PIPE, the YWCA of Olympia, and many other organizations came to the table to say, yeah, you know, we want to work with Anchor Community Initiative. We want to put our county in to look at youth and young adult homelessness in a different way. So super cool. And when was it founded? It was just, I mean, how many months ago did Thurston County start?
Well, I was hired in like end of April, like then we like started right away. So I would say like May is like when we started really getting into it. I know that there was some work being done before I was hired, but that I think that's when we started. That's when we did our by name list, scorecard, and all that. So that's when we started really getting in Thurston County.
Right. So what makes Anchor Community Initiative different than how youth and young adult homeless systems and programs have been operating before?
I think what makes us different is just that we really do have that strong belief that we can't do this work without having youth and young adults come to the table and you know, give their opinions and their voices and their direction. I don't think a lot of like past programs and systems have really focused on that. And so us bringing that to the table, and like we make sure it's like included, like we have to have it included or we're not going to work. So I think that sets us apart.
Right. Lex, what would you add? Anything?
That, and also having the opportunity to have just like multiple service providers come to one table and really talk about the issues and gaps within our community, because I don't think there are so many agencies and different programs that are happening, but we're not always connected with each other or even know that there's a whole other program happening. So like being able to provide an opportunity and space for everybody to come to the table and be like, oh cool, you do this thing, oh cool, you do this thing. And then once we all know like what's here, then we also know what the gaps are. And if we can come together and like unite, and instead of like siloing each other and ourselves, we can get a lot more work done. Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Lex, because youth voice definitely is an improvement to the system. And I think the other key improvement with Anchor Community Initiative is that it's a collaborative, right? That we'll be building collaborative teams who are working together to solve homelessness, you know, kid by kid and young adult by young adult. And I think that's different than the Thurston County system has worked before and is going to be a mass improvement. And I love that. Yeah. So for all of you, Sierra's going to ask this question because I just looked at my notes.
So this question is, you know, we're talking about the Anchor Community Initiative in Thurston and what we're seeing as, like big wins so far, and what we see is like improvements and changes. But what do you see as the biggest challenges to this initiative in Thurston? Like, what are some of the barriers you're seeing, or, you know, that we've talked about as a group that we're trying to address for our county and a community?
Yeah. I think like one of the biggest challenges that we see in Thurston County is something that we see across the state, and that's disproportionality. We like LGBTQ plus and BIPOC, QT BIPOC, that's a systematic issue. And I think it was like 40% of LGBTQ plus will experience homelessness at some point in their lives. And like, we just don't have the systems to support LGBTQ and QT BIPOC. And like, that's just not cool. Like, we have to like work as a community to figure out why this information's not getting gathered, and we need to approach this so we can see what the real cause is for disproportionality. Because at the ACI we cannot end youth homelessness without ending disproportionality. So I think that's the biggest challenge, one of the biggest challenges that I've seen, like not even just in Thurston County, across the state.
And to just go off of that, I remember from a recent survey that went out to service providers, there was a question that asked, do you provide Black, Indigenous, people of color specific services and programs? And I believe of the people who participated in the survey, only one service provider said yes, everybody else said no, and then asked, do you want to expand your Black, Indigenous, people of color programs and services? And only one agency said yes, and that was also the agency that already provides those services. So it cannot just be on one agency to like head start this. All of our agencies and all of our groups and organizations and community members, like, that should be a priority, as well as addressing LGBTQ. I'm part of the community. I can't even say it. LGBTQ plus community members as well, and constantly thinking about like equity and addressing that disproportionality. It's a community effort, not just designating to one branch.
Yeah, I remember the survey that you're talking about, and I was like looking through the results, and like my like jaw dropped, because I was like, why are you not saying yes that you want this? Like, it was just crazy. So I think that's like something that we're gonna like talk about a lot in Thurston County, is seeing like where can we implement change into that, and because we have to gather that data and that information.
That's what I really have appreciated about the philosophy of Anchor Community Initiative, is just like this change you're talking about. And I think it's really asking us as a community to be willing to do things differently. And we have to, in order to, see different results. Like, we can't just do the same thing. And so I think that's a great example of, really asking the question of like, why is there only one agency, or why aren't more people pushing themselves to try something different and to really show up. So
So now that we've talked about the challenges, I want to talk, what are the biggest opportunities and strength that you think Thurston County has to achieve functional zero for youth homelessness? And how does the ACI fit into that, or Anchor Community Initiative fit into that? And when you're answering that question, please also define for our listeners what functional zero means.
So the ACI definitely falls in line with the functional zero. So functional zero means that we're functionally ending youth homelessness. So we're doing that. We just have that focus of youth and young adults for the homelessness part of it. And we took the framework of Built for Zero that are working to end chronic and veteran homelessness in the county and in the state. And so we took that from them and like made the focus for young people. So we definitely fit into line with that. And the ACI, the Anchor Community Initiative, has this idea that Washington is going to be a yes-to-yes state, meaning that any young person that is needing services can get those services without even leaving their home community. And so like we want a young person to come in and say, like, I need help with A, B, and C, and we can be like, yo, we got you, and say that confidently and honestly, and get them the services that they are needing.
Yeah. Lex, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. When I'm thinking about the opportunities and strengths for our community, I go back to really engaging and making sure that youth and young adults aren't just like participating and giving feedback. They are actually being like leading the conversations of like, this is what is actually needed, so that when a young person says, yes, I want help, people can say, yes, we have those things. Not, well, not right now, let me, but, or the goal is to like, well, maybe that doesn't encompass our program, but I know of a program to connect you to.
Right.
Oh man, I had another thought and it flew out of my brain.
As it does. Sierra, what do you think some of the opportunities and strengths are in our community?
What I was thinking while you all were talking, especially this focus, of course, like you all have mentioned, on bringing youth and young adults to the table. And I, not even thinking of it like bringing them. It's like, we are like, showing up for them in a way that we haven't been. And I think that's such a strength because, as someone who works with youth, has worked with youth in this community, like they are brilliant. They have so many answers that we have like not been listening to. So I feel like that's a huge strength of our community, of just like that wealth of knowledge that I think we're going to finally be like waking up to, of like, like we're trying to, have youth be housed and have, this functional zero, where this idea of like, youth might become homeless, but they're not homeless for very long, and there's resources for them, and they're quickly, housed. Like, I think they have so many ideas on how to do that, and they've already been doing that, just like community peer-to-peer, and so I think that's such a huge strength and opportunity for us that I'm really excited about, bringing all of those people together with us and just talking about it. So I think that's a huge strength. And I just also think like we have, just in the collaborative meetings that we've had as service providers, like we're all doing really good stuff in different ways. And I think finally being able to really just like you were saying, Lex, of like, oh, but I know someone who does that or has that resource. And I think, just taking that to the next level that we maybe haven't been, of like, oh, I know this person, or I'm going to meet with them next week to talk about this. So I think that, it's there.
Yeah. I'm going to go a little bit off script because I think I want to address, there's lots of pieces to Anchor Community Initiative that I think are coming to our community, newly and also in a collaborative way. So I want to talk a little bit about the pieces, right? We talked about the Youth Advisory Board. Then there's also the collaborative team of organizations that are meeting. But then in addition, there's going to be a collaborative team of in-reach and outreach. Yeah.
The Yes team.
Yeah, the Yes team, who are going to be like a cross-organizational team. And I think for the listeners to like actually hear, like, how is this going to functionally change the way our system works? The Youth Advisory Board is going to be huge. I think this collaborative cross-organizational team that's really accountable to the community and not to each organization will be huge, which will be focused on both outreach into the youth and young adult homeless population experiencing homelessness, but also our organization is going to be focusing on reaching into systems that are already working with students and youth and young adults who are facing homelessness. And I don't think that system has been well coordinated at all. And then there's also the diversion fund, right? Which has created a collaborative pot of cash to youth and young adults away from the system. And the last was the case conferencing, right? Which is a place where we can talk about, specific youth and really work to house them, right? Instead of just thinking about, well, my organization doesn't have the resource or the program, so I'm just going to refer. It's like, no, let's do this today. Let's house them by Friday, right?
Yeah.
Let's move them off this list. And then the by name list. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the by name list?
Yeah, so the by name list, we took it basically from the Built from Zero framework, but it is just a list of 50 questions. It's a long list, but we are working to make sure that everything that we say no to on the list, we can say yes to. So that way, as a community, we are working together. And so far, we have 8 yeses, which is very exciting.
Out of 50 questions.
But we
making
just started
progress.
in May. We just started in May. We're doing good. But yeah, so like we talk about outreach, and so that's where this outreach and inreach team is coming from. And so we can have outreach into the population of youth and young adults, and we can get that out there. So we want everything to be that yes, because that also brings us to that yes to yes state, that everybody's getting served.
Right.
And getting served within like 30 days, or, getting housed in 30 days, or with the diversion funds, like you were just saying, like get housed tomorrow. Yeah. But so, yeah, it's very exciting. It's just a very collaborative list. But I think one thing that I've am really proud about that I've seen in Thurston County is that we are all so focused on it, and like we want this yes to yes. And we look at what we have in Thurston County, what we don't have, what needs changed. And it's not to cast judgment on anybody in any agency. It's just to be like, hey, this isn't working. Like, how can we improve this?
Yeah.
And it's really cool because I feel like in our meetings, when we talk about the by name list or anything that's going on in Thurston County, like we are collaborating, we are working together. And it's just very exciting to see like things get going. And so with the Anchor Community Initiative too, there's phases. So like right now we're in the phase of where we're just like gathering our information. Right. We're planning, we're scheming on what to do. Yeah, and
building relationships.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we're doing all that. And then the next phase is when we're going to like start implementing these changes and like doing the groundwork. And so that's going to be really exciting to see when that comes.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. Did I miss any key aspects of Anchor Community Initiative? Because I want to make sure to hit on all those.
Well, I guess maybe just one thing that I'm thinking of that feels important to me, like something that stood out to me about all of this is like we want to get to a place where like we're working on making the by name list like accurate, like going through that of like, is this like when you're talking about like saying yes, it's like questions of like, do we have this system set up so we're identifying this population, or like are we connected to this community agency or state agency? Like, are we all talking to each other? And I think once we get to this point, like we will have a list of youth, like an accurate list, that's the goal, of youth and young adults experiencing homelessness, and that we know them, by name. Like that's like where that piece comes from, my understanding. And so then we can, with that case conferencing that we're talking about, like actually like, okay, here are the folks and we're going to work through this and get them housed. And so I think that's a really kind of a radical idea, that there's like one list of the youth and young adults in our community that are experiencing homelessness, and all of us are coming together to figure that out and work with them on that. Like with that's big.
Youth voice at the center, right? Yeah. Which is just so rad.
Yeah. Because I think what, and I guess I'll kind of talk about this and as we continue on, but just like, I think right now we have different pockets. Everyone has different pockets of information and like work with different populations of youth. Like from our perspective, working with the schools, like we see, maybe different families and different people that aren't connected to other housing providers. And so I think like getting that all together and like, so it's not like there's one group of youth over here that one group of people are working with, and then there's another group over here that another group is like, that's not, hasn't been working. So, yeah.
Yep. Well, and that's a good segue to ask Sierra a question. How is community schools partnering with the ACI, and how does it fit in with the why behind the community schools model?
Yeah. So community schools, and I'll mention too, for listeners of our podcast who are familiar with the Host Homes program as well, we are very collaborative with Host Homes and the ACI and community schools as well. So we're all working together on this, and that's a big reason that community schools, it's the reason that we're connected to this work. And so that's really exciting. And the big thing that's going to be happening that Meagan kind of touched on is that together we'll have a staff through the Anchor Community Initiative that will be working for our agency in collaboration with this other group that she mentioned. So that'll be staff from other agencies hired through the ACI to case conference and to bring this level of connection that hasn't been there before. And so what's really cool is, I think this started to happen when we started the Host Homes program, of our agency really being more collaborative with itself in a way that maybe hadn't been happening before, because Host Homes community schools are just buddies. We're just BFFs in the way that we work, and that's really cool. And this person, the new person that we'll hire on in the next few months, is one of the first staff that will really work across our agency in a really big way, like not just Host Homes community schools, but also Clubhouse, and across the county, because this initiative is our entire county, and so we're not just going to be focused on one geographic area. Of course, we'll start somewhere, but like the goal is that our whole county is involved in this, and so that's, I think, just in our agency, really changing the way that we're looking at the way we do things, of like, how are we collaborating Clubhouse, Host Homes, and community schools for this? And so our role is really the school side of things and changing the way, that's how we're partnering with ACI, is, bringing, I don't know if it's just connecting the schools and the homeless providers in a way that hasn't happened before, is really our vision and dream. And building those connections in a way that will, get people housed. And so we do so much work, and we've talked about this on previous episodes of the podcast, with students and families who are identified as McKinney-Vento. So McKinney-Vento is, a designation that the schools use that is the same definition of homelessness that the ACI uses, which is very broad. It's the most broad that you can get. It includes being on the street. It includes being doubled up, so like staying with another family. It includes couch surfing, unstably housed.
Yep.
So that's, like I said, the same definition.
Or fleeing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So,
which is the definition community schools has used, because we work within the school system. And I think that is, one of the challenges will be to fit that definition into how our service providers have seen it previously.
Right. Yeah. And that's the same definition that the Anchor Community Initiative uses as well.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, no. I think, let's see, was there anything else? Yeah. So, so I think that is because we match so closely. Like, community schools has been using that definition since, its inception, because it's what the schools use, and that's how we serve families. It's such an easy connection with the ACI work. And I think with the why question of, and I know I've said this before on the podcast of like the why for community schools is really, I think, to revolutionize a community, to change the way that we're thinking about it. And something stood out to me in a training I recently did that the ACI hosted, that it was like, really, we need to start thinking about homelessness. Youth homelessness is a community problem, and it takes community solutions. And I'm like, ding, ding, ding. Like that's, that's the community schools model.
Yes, it is.
And to see youth and young adults experiencing homelessness as our community, as, like our family, as people that we need to be connected to together, and to not see it as like something separate that's happening to somewhere else, or like separate from what we consider as our community. And so I think that's how it fits into the why. And I think it fits into this vision of a, equitable school system that, like McKinney-Vento students there's a like talking about disproportionality, like there's such a disproportionate rate in our local community, and I'm sure this is true everywhere, of graduation rates, of attendance rates. And so, this fits into that of like addressing that gap and addressing that disproportionality of students experiencing homelessness.
Yeah.
Being able to be a part of school and to graduate. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just want to add one way, we're having meetings internally at Together about ACI and kind of blowing up how we're working and thinking about youth and young adult homelessness internally. Because, the truth is that our services haven't been seen as part of the system of care for students facing homelessness. And to be like validated that we've been doing this work the whole time. We've had diversion funds internally with our organization, and to say, okay, what can we bring to our community and to the table? And what we do have is we have strong partnerships with the school system. And I would argue and have said that our schools and the McKinney-Vento liaisons, and I'm going to give, props to North Thurston Public Schools. They are some of the largest systems of care for students facing homelessness. In North Thurston, there are liaisons who are working with every single identified McKinney-Vento student in the high schools. And that hasn't been a part of the community conversation. And that's what we hope to bring to the table is we have two separate systems of care that haven't been coordinated. And the school system is housing kids, and they haven't been seen as part of the party, and they are. And in fact, they are seeing more students facing homelessness, I would argue, than all of the other organizations combined. And they know who they are. They know them by name. They know their families. They know why they're homeless. And they're meeting their needs every day. And so how do we bring the school system to the table in a way that transforms the system? And I think we can. And we're excited to do it. I mean, I was like, shoot, we're ready. Like, we've been waiting. We're having meetings about it. Like, let's go. And so we're excited to do that. So, we're having conversations with Tumwater School District, because for us, that is the closest relationship we have with the school district. Up to and including, like, what would it look like for them to be trained in HMIS, right? Like, which is the Homeless Management Information System, which is where a by name list will live, and to have schools be like, yeah, like, we want to manage this better, and we want to connect because our students need housing and they can't do it alone. And I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Yeah. I just high-five myself. High fives. High fives. All right. Well, before I ask the last question, is there anything else you all want to add about the Youth Advisory Board? Any plugs, any calls to action, or Anchor Community Initiative?
Do you want to give some plugs?
Yeah. I just want to plug the Youth Advisory Board, aka, or also known as the YAB. If there's anybody listening who has lived experience or knows anybody who you would want to let know, you can reach and wants to join the advisory board. and that is youth and young adults from 12 to 24. You can email me at lex@ywcaolympia.org. That's LEX at YWCAOLYMPIA. Wow. How do you spell Olympia.org? Yeah, that's my plug.
Amazing.
Awesome. Yes. And kind of the same with Lex. Like if anybody is interested in the ACI work, any agencies or providers out there that like have heard of us but are like, I don't know if I want to do that. Like I am down to have a one-on-one chat with anybody and everybody about what the ACI is. I can give a brief overview of it. And yeah, we can just talk and see if you want to be part of our improvement team meetings that happen bi-weekly. And like that is a lot. Like we're all super busy. So I understand that's a lot, but we also will have like work groups come out so that are focused on like youth and young adult engagement or policies and procedures or logistics. Like we're going to have more of that come out and over the next few months. And so if anybody wants to be like a part of that, they can email me at mtoney, TONEY at awayhomewashington.org. And it's just Washington, WA.
Not the full.
Not the full thing. And then also we have a Facebook and an Instagram for Away Home Washington, as well as our own website that has like the ACI resource hub, and like literally any question that you might think of for the ACI, it's on there, and like full description. So that is also a great place to start.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask our last question that we ask every guest, which is, what does building community as an act of resistance mean to you? And Lex and Meagan, we're going to have each of you answer.
I love this question.
I do too.
I was so excited for this question.
Yeah.
So I think like in a culture that puts so much emphasis on individuality and like this whole bootstrap theory, it actually doesn't serve anybody. I'm gonna call in some wisdom that was shared by Aja, who used to work at Away Home Washington and recently transitioned out of her role. She was like, is there really anything that any of us do that really is just like us self-sufficiently, that isn't influenced by any other person? It's really not. We are so interconnected, and like we have this culture that tries to sell this illusion that we're all just like separate little islands that are supposed to be self-sustaining. But that's really like how we die. That's how we fail. And like surviving is really a community effort. Surviving cannot be done alone. And so like building community as an act of resistance, like building community is like building trust, it's building connections. And also I think a super important part of community is also finding times of joy in a world that, you know, has so many like tragedies and like systems that enforce the individuality. And especially for marginalized groups, like finding spaces of joy is just a radical act, because it's like, screw you, despite everything that you do to try and like tear down and tear away access to basic human needs, I'm still thriving and finding joy and can laugh. Yeah. That's my answer.
It was beautiful. Yeah, I really love this answer too. And it made me like dive in deep into like who I am as an ACI coordinator and my role in this position. And like, I'm new to this. I've never been in a role like this before. And everybody in the ACI, the Anchor Community Initiative, we're all new to this too in Thurston County. Like this is all so weird to us, but we're still out there taking the risk, and we're trying new things, and we're being innovative. And I think that's just like super cool that we're doing that. And I do see like sometimes in our improvement team meetings, there are challenges and there's conflicts and there's difference of opinions, but we're still there. We're listening, we're understanding, and we're trusting each other. And like, it's like a safe, like we kind of touched on this earlier, like it's a safe, like mutual space for us to all collaborate together. And I think that's really cool to see. And I think we have to remind each other, like, we matter, what we're doing matter, and the people we're serving matter. And we have to build and strengthen our community in order to have that strong, reliable community for everybody in there. So
Love it.
Great.
Yeah. I know. I think about as a executive director, like ACI challenges us that it's not about our organizations. Like it's not about us. Like it is not about us. It is not about the system, right? It is not about any of the individual organizations. It's about our community. And that is beyond, budgets and beyond, positions and beyond. It's just beyond it.
Yeah.
We're just people, right? And it's about the issue and it's about the gaps and it's about the community of youth that needs something different because we are failing it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for the answers. I love it. We're better together. Look at that cute little sign up there. So last, I'm going to ask you, how can people best support Tumwater Community Schools?
Yes, thank you for asking that, Megan. So the best way that people can support Tumwater Community Schools, and a very simple and easy way, in my opinion, is to donate to our SWIFT Fund. And the SWIFT Fund is named after Earl Swift and our founding executive director, correct? And it's also, it's swift, it's quick, right? So we have a really great system, I think, together of being able to meet families' needs very quickly. And so this SWIFT Fund helps that. If you donate to that through our website, we are able to use that money for rental assistance, car repair. It's really diversion at the end of the day of being able to meet families where they're at with what they need. And we do that all the time. I'll just say last week, which is kind of wild. It's out there, the amount of money we spent last week, but we spent,
it is wild.
Yeah, $16,000 in rental
one week.
Yeah, in assistance. Oh, wow. And it was I think a lot of people listening will understand that this time of year is really hard. And this is one of our biggest times for, people needing support in that way. And so that is obviously a huge chunk of change. And we would love community support if you can help us with that. But I'm really proud to say that, the team was able to help families, prevent eviction, stay housed. There were plenty of people that we serve that, they do have eviction notices. They are, we had an eviction moratorium for a while with the pandemic. That is not the case anymore. It's over. And so even in the wintertime, families are getting evicted, needing to live in their cars, need to live on the streets. I think most people know that, but just really to remember that's
and
happening.
Heat turned off, right?
Yeah.
Phones turned off. And the needs are great and every dollar helps.
Yes.
And our website is www.watogether.org. Go in there, click on the SWIFT Fund, and that funding is designated to swiftly meet families' needs.
Yeah.
So with that, I'm going to end us. This was great. Thank you so much. I get so excited. You saw, I like that. Ooh, I'm excited about this. And we're just really hoping that our community can really buckle down and, and do this and collaborate differently. So thank you both for the space you all are holding for Anchor Community and making sure we're working together and that youth are coming to the table. I love it. And I want to thank Dancing Goats Coffee for keeping us caffeinated. Before this started, I was like, I am so caffeinated. So I'm sure that may have come through. I'm like all twitchy over here. A little bit too much caffeine this morning. So thank you, Dancing Goats, for allowing that to happen for me today. And with that, I'm going to close us out. Yay.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening. Thanks for coming.
Yes,
and
thank you.
Yeah. Thanks to Porcupine Media.